9,900,000,000 BC, JKCSO41 forms. 9,800,000,000 BC, Quasar 3C9 and the Andromeda Galaxy forms. 9,700,000,000 BC, Gliese 677 cc forms, which the universe reaches 1/3 of its diameter. 9,600,000,000 BC, our galaxy's star formation rate stabilizes. 9,350,000,000 BC, Bernard's star forms. 9,300,000,000 BC, star formation in Andromeda makes it into an luminous infrared galaxy. 9 billion BC, oldest evidence for dark energy in the universe. 8,800,000,000 BC, our galaxy's thin disk starts forming. 8,700,000,000 BC, the galaxy's collision. 8,500,000,000 BC, Lalonde 21,185 forms. 8,400,000,000 BC, Lalonde 9,352 forms. 8 billion BC, our galaxy's star formation rate begins to decline, or slow down. 7,900,000,000 BC, HD 176051 planetary system forms. 7,800,000,000 BC, many galaxies become relatively stable, and Mizar forms. 7,500,000,000 BC, GRB 080319b has been visible, and plus, Arcturus, the fourth brightest star, forms. 7,300,000,000 BC, HD 10180 planetary system forms. 7 billion BC, the universe has been cooled down below 5 Kelvin. 6,900,000,000 BC, the universe is about 1/2 the age. 6,800,000,000 BC, the North Star, Polaris, forms. 6,700,000,000 BC, Alnitak forms. 6,500,000,000 BC, our galaxy starts spiralizing. 6,400,000,000 BC, our universe is about the age of an Earth-like planet. 6,200,000,000 BC, 61 Cygni forms. 6,160,000,000 BC, Mare planetary system forms. 6 billion BC, Earth's near twin, Kepler 452b forms, which dark energy overtakes gravity. 5,820,000,000, Alpha Centauri star system forms. 5,800,000,000 BC, Tau Cetus forms. 5,500,000,000 BC, the solar nebula starts collapsing, which our galaxy has become an spiral galaxy. 5,300,000,000 BC, GRB 101225a, also known as the Christmas burst, recorded. 5,200,000,000, Gliese 570 forms. 5 billion BC, Messiah 67 open star cluster forms. 4,850,000,000 BC, the closest star to the Sun, Proxima Centauri, forms. 4,700,000,000, SN 2005 AP supernova. 4,600,000,000, Primal supernova triggers the solar system. 4,568,200,000 BC, our star, the Sun, forms. 4,567,170,000 BC, the Jovian planets evolve around the Sun. 4,560,000,000 BC, our planet, Earth, has formed. 4,543,000,000 BC, the terrestrial planets evolve around the Sun. 4,533,000,000 BC, the Moon forms by an collision by Theia. 4,529,000,000 BC, major collision with a Pluto-sized planetoid establishes the Martian dichotomy on Mars. 4,500,000,000 BC, the Sun became the main sequence star. 4,455,000,000, tidal locking causes the Earth to face the Moon. 4,450,000,000 BC, the Earth is 7 hours long. 4,404,000,000 BC, oceans form on our planet. 4,400,000,000 BC, Kepler 438b forms, and the Earth was 6 hours long. 4,310,000,000 BC, the Earth settles in a stable orbit. 4,300,000,000 BC, water starts condensing in liquid form. 4,260,000,000 BC, the Earth's tectonic plates formed. 4,250,000,000 BC, Mintaka forms. 4,200,000,000 BC, Tharsis Bridge have been an widespread area of volcanism on Mars, and life emerges on Earth. 4,110,000,000 BC, resonance in Jupiter and Saturn, and the beginning of the late heavy bombardment. 4,100,000,000 BC, the oldest rock in Earth. 4 billion BC, the Earth is 14.4 hours long and HD 209458b forms. 3,950,000,000 BC, first seas on Earth. 3,938,000,000 BC, Mare Imbrium forms. 3,920,000,000 BC, Nectaris Basin forms. 3,900,000,000 BC, Tolstoy and Caloris Basin forms, and the Earth is 15 hours long. 3,850,000,000 BC, beginning of the late Imbrium period on the Moon. 3,840,000,000 BC, Orientale Basin forms and first photosynthesis on Earth. 3,800,000,000 BC, the end of the late heavy bombardment. 3,650,000,000 BC, Vaalbara forms. 3,600,000,000 BC, Vaalbara emerges and Albemonte forms. 3,500,000,000, cyanobacteria fossils. 3,480,000,000 BC, the first oxygen is pumped into ecosystems. 3,300,000,000 BC, compressional tectonics. 3,260,000,000 BC, the Barberton event left a 380-mile crater. 3,200,000,000 BC, forms. 3,100,000,000 BC, first land bacteria. 3 billion BC, the Beethoven Basin on Mercury has formed. 2,950,000,000 BC, Zeta Reticuli forms. 2,900,000,000 BC, oxygen in the oceans had become sufficient to support metals. 2,800,000,000 BC, Vaalbara breaks up. 2,750,000,000 BC, the major cometite eruption. 2,700,000,000 BC, the first eukaryotes. 2,600,000,000 BC, oldest giant carbonate platform. 2,550,000,000 BC, Zeta Puppis forms. 2,250,000,000 BC, the Earth is 12 hours long. 2,500,000,000, the Great Oxygenation Event, which the Proterozoic begins. 2,400,000,000 BC, the Huronian glaciation starts. 2,300,000,000 BC, the continental red beds form. 2,220,000,000 BC, the atmospheric oxygen level is now 1%. 2,200,000,000, the ozone layer forms. 2,100,000,000 BC, the human glaciation ends. 2,020,000,000 BC, that for impact left an 190-mile crater. 2 billion BC, multicellular cells. 1,900,000,000 BC, the atmospheric oxygen level is now 15%. 1,850,000,000 BC, Sudbury impact leaving a 160-mile crater. 1,800,000,000 BC, Columbia forms. 1,750,000,000, the oldest rocks in Grand Canyon. 1,700,000,000 BC, the oldest sand dune eggs. 1,600,000,000 BC, mitochondria assimilate into eukaryotic cells. 1,500,000,000 BC, Columbia breaks up. 1,450,000,000 BC, geologic platform covers expand. 1,400,000,000 BC, the population of stromatolites rapidly rises. 1,370,000,000 BC, Procyon forms. 1,300,000,000 BC, Greenville orogeny starts. 1,200,000,000 BC, Rodinia forms. 1,150,000,000 BC, population explosion of eukaryotes. 1,110,000,000 BC, flagellate protists.